everything working together. It's allowing the brain and the body to communicate. Everything in life is about communication.
Yeah.
If you have it, you can experience the two greatest gifts that God gave you, in my opinion, which are health and love. You'll be engaging. You'll probably have money. If not, you don't have communication, and you're going to be spiritually, physically, and or emotionally challenged.
I'm Andre, and this is the Speak Your Life podcast, where we talk about everything as it relates to education, careers, values, mentors, and anything to do with purpose. We do this one impactful conversation at a time, whether it's solo dolo with yours truly or our amazing guests to share stories, industry insights, encouraging words, and calls to action that can help you get closer to your why. Become a part of the Speak Your Life community by subscribing today to the podcast and following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Speak Your LYFE, because life without your why is meaningless. Today's guest he's a born and bred New Yorker. He attended the New York Chiropractic College, obtained his chiropractic doctorate from Life University, is also a diplomat in neurology from the UConn Medical School, certified in NLP from the Tony Robbins program, and has now been in practice for over 36 years. Please welcome Dr. Art Patterson.
Hi, how you doing, Andre? It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So tell us a quick life story, background and everything, and just a 5-minute life story.
Well, I failed to grow up right here on Staten Island. As a matter of fact, less than a mile from where we are right now. I was destined, supposedly, to be a fighter pilot in the United States Marine Corps. I was a very good athlete in high school. Circumstances had it that my knees were really bad. I wound up going to 3 different orthopedists. That one was worse than the other.
Yeah.
And I wound up going to a chiropractor 5 times. My knees never hurt again. I'm now 61 and a half. And so instead of becoming a fighter pilot, I decided God wanted me to be a chiropractor. And I believe that chiropractic is the most noble profession on the planet, and it has blessed me tremendously.
Wow, that's awesome. So what made you work as a chiropractor? You said it's the best profession.
Well, when my knees got well, I went to chiropractic school. As you said, I started at New York Chiropractic College in 1979.
Yeah.
Myself and 7 of my classmates transferred to Life University, which is now Life University, where I graduated magna cum laude in 1983.
Yeah.
And I've been a chiropractor ever since. It gave me my wife, gave me both of my wives, actually.
Okay.
It gave me my wife that ultimately is the love of my life, gave me my only biological son. It gave me the 3 children I do have still in my life. And it's allowed me to help many thousands of people, and it's allowed me to stay very healthy, and it's eventually getting me very wealthy as well. And I've met some of the greatest people in the world as a chiropractor.
Wow. So there's a lot of people out there that hear about chiropractic, just the whole practice of it, and they don't know they don't really know the picture. They don't really know the story of how it gets started. They don't really know anything about chiropractic. They just know you go for an adjustment after you get into a car accident or something like that.
You're bent over and you hear and you feel better. It's not about feeling better. That is using chiropractic as a very expensive aspirin. If you want to take an aspirin, it'll cost you a few cents. If you want to get well, which brings you to the philosophy of health, which you can choose a philosophy called mechanism, which is fine, which means that your body is a whole bunch of different parts, and we're going to selectively correct those parts, and hopefully you're going to be symptom-free, which is what we consider health in our society. But health is not, Dolan's Medical Dictionary says the definition of health is not merely the absence of symptoms or disease and infirmities, but it's everything working together. It's allowing the brain and the body to communicate. Everything in life is about communication.
Yeah.
If you have it, you can experience the 2 greatest gifts that God gave you, in my opinion, which are health and love. You'll be engaging. You'll probably have money. If not, you don't have communication, and you're going to be spiritually, physically, and or emotionally challenged.
Wow.
So Chiropractic was discovered September 18th, 1895, when a gentleman of African American descent by the name of Harvey Lillard had his 17-year hearing deficiency or malady or handicap corrected and restored to normal hearing by Daniel David Palmer, or D.D. Palmer for short, in Davenport, Iowa. Most people think of chiropractic as somebody you go to when you have a kink in your back or your neck. You get and then you feel better, but it's not a feel-good experience. It is a be-good experience. What chiropractic does, it allows the brain cell and the body cell to communicate. When you have communication in any relationship, the relationship can flourish. That's especially true inside the body between the brain cell and the body cell. If the brain cell and the body cell communicate properly, you can experience, in my opinion, the two greatest gifts that God can give you, which are health and love. If you have health and love, you have life.
Yeah.
If you don't have health and love, you're going to have challenges physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Chiropractic recognizes that, embracing a philosophy of being called vitalism, as opposed to a philosophy called mechanism, meaning that we're a whole bunch of different system or body parts that have to work together. If vitalism understands or embraces the fact that everything is greater than the sum of its parts, and the body is a self-healing, self-regulating mechanism, I believe everything comes from above, down, inside, out, not outside in, with pills, potions, lotions, and drugs. When I make sure that the communication is proper, we don't have to figure out what to do. The body does it for us. It's called the innate intelligence of the body, or the God within. So, and the most frequently jailed individual was a gentleman, Dr. Reaver. He was the most frequently jailed chiropractor, because back in the day when chiropractors were healing everybody, they used to get put in jail quite frequently because it was very politically challenging to the established medical societies, and chiropractors were jailed for political reasons. And Dr. Riva was an African-American gentleman, and his thousands of patients would show up at the jails with signs and have marches and demand that he get released. And what happened was Dr. Riva wound up having a line of the prison guards getting adjusted in his cell. So African Americans have a very, very rich contribution to the profession and practice of chiropractic. Most African Americans probably don't know that. Most Caucasian Americans don't know that.
I never was taught that.
Most chiropractors don't know that.
Wow.
But I'm very, very grateful that there were people like the Palmers. D.D. Palmer discovered chiropractic. His son, B.J. Palmer, is known as the developer of chiropractic and founded the first chiropractic school, which is still in existence to this day, which is Palmer School of Chiropractic in Davenport, Iowa.
Wow.
And I'm blessed to be a graduate, a very proud graduate of now Life University in Marietta, Georgia. And we have a sister school in California, Life Chiropractic College West, both of which I contribute to, and I'm privileged to help carry on the great tradition of chiropractic. And they actually have a museum in Life Chiropractic College West that I had the opportunity to visit again this summer and watch. They have a statue of in the office, a rendition of the office where that first adjustment actually took place.
Man, that's crazy.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And they have tables that looked like the table that Harvey Lillard had the first chiropractic adjustment on, and that's where the information about Dr. Reaver and a friend of mine, Dr. George Casey, actually runs that museum.
And that's in what part of Iowa again?
That is actually in California. It's in Hayward, California. Life
California.
Chiropractic College West. The one in Davenport, Iowa, is Palmer Chiropractic College.
Okay.
That's the very first one. It's known as the Fountainhead.
So I would have never thought that chiropractic would have come out of, such a small town. Because, most places, most discoveries, all these big discoveries usually come out of big cities.
Right.
And so that's really, really cool to learn that history. So I was wondering, like, what made you, like, I know you talked about how you thought you were supposed to be a fighter pilot, like, but what made you, like, what was it about chiropractic that kind of drew you in that was...
Well, first of all, when I got well, my knees got well. Who would think of going to a chiropractor because they had knee trouble? My father was going to a chiropractor because he had shoulder trouble. And when I didn't get well, after going to 3 orthopedists, and I knew I had been in good shape at the time because I was 16 years old at the time. At 15, I rode my bicycle from here in Staten Island to Miami Beach, Florida, with my cousin, which was quite an accomplishment for kids that age.
Wait, what?
I rode my bicycle from Staten Island, New York to Miami Beach, Florida when I was 15.
How long did it take you?
Well, it was 22 days to the border, but we had some delays. I got hit by a truck on the second day, and then the gentleman that hit us with the truck tried to kidnap us, but that's a story for another time.
I'm just so baffled about this story because, like, I had a friend that drove a car from, I think it was Arkansas all the way to the very bottom part of Panama, and I thought that was a very big accomplishment. But riding a bicycle from Staten Island all the way to Miami, that's... I'm sorry, I think that's even more impressive.
When we got to Daytona Beach, we went across to visit Disney World and then went across to the West Coast to visit an aunt and uncle of mine. Then we came back and went to Miami Beach. We got back to New York quite a bit quicker, though. That took us 2.5 hours because we flew back. The bikes came back by train, but we flew back.
Wow. A bicycle.
Yes, it was quite an experience. And to this day, I remember it was instrumental in forming my understanding of they were great people and then they were not so nice people everywhere you go. The gentleman that hit me with his truck and ultimately tried to kidnap us, we wound up at a campground and the people did not allow us to pay, and they drove me back and forth across a toll bridge to go to a bicycle shop, and they didn't let us pay for the campground or the bridge. So, and then we met people on the Outer Banks of the Carolinas that just embraced us, brought us and fed us a Southern hospitality meal. It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
I know all about Southern hospitality. Yeah, people from the north, and they come down, they're just like, wow, they're just so impressed as to why people just randomly say hi to them on the streets and just randomly smile at them when they're not really trying to sell them anything or anything like that. So I know that was an adjustment for me coming up to Jersey and just waving at people, just talking to people. They kind of get skeptical at first, and then they realize that, oh, okay, this guy is actually a nice person. So,
and just bringing it back to chiropractic, I was very, very blessed early on in my career in 1979 to be exposed to the ultimately to the technique that I prefer to use to this day, which is called directional non-force technique, or DNFT for short.
Yeah.
It was discovered or founded by a gentleman, Dr. Richard Van Rumpt, and he would teach these 4-day seminars. It was not a part of school. I had to spend money outside of school to learn these seminars. He looked like Yoda. He was really screwed up by medicine. He had vertigo. He was almost blind, but yet he wore all of this out with his teaching. And before he passed away, he invited some of his best students out to Santa Barbara, California, to share his wisdom before he passed away. And I was fortunate enough to be chosen to be one of them. And at that time, he put his arm around me. He said, "Patterson, you're a screw up," and he's right. I think they named ADHD after me. Plus, he predicted that I would have a personal problem, and he did. He said I'd get through it, and he did. Then he made me promise that I never stopped doing what I did because I had something coming out of my hands that I didn't understand. And when he's saying this, he had tears in his eyes, which caused me to have tears in my eyes. That at that moment is when I learned I did not choose to be a chiropractor. However, I was chosen to be one, and I take that very seriously today.
Wow, those are always great stories to hear whenever somebody just they discover their purpose, or it chooses them or whatever like that, because there's a lot of people that I don't know, they're just lost. They're lost and just not finding their way as far as like, what is their purpose? Why they're here on this earth, and why they're help people.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've been lost, and I like to think I'm found now. I've had my personal struggles. I've made tons of mistakes, and I just like to think that first of all, my profession, allowing me to do the things that I do, has helped me recover from the problems that I've had in the past, and a day at a time I don't have to continue to have those problems. And that genre of philosophical thought, vitalism, that I've now fully embraced, and God, I may have the opportunity or the calling to be the next president of the New York Chiropractic Council, which I've gotten very active again in, to help those coming out of school, to help the public understand. Like right now we're in the midst of an opiate crisis that is created by our healthcare system. It's very telling when our healthcare system is one of the leading cause of death in the country itself. Chiropractic does not bury their mistakes like medicine does. That in and of itself is one of the reasons why I gravitated to the profession of chiropractic, and I'm so blessed to do so, especially that I went on and got postgraduate training in neurology. So everything that somebody does something. You just experienced an adjustment probably different than you ever did before.
Yeah, I did. Felt a lot better after that. Gave me more energy and
well, when your brain and your body are communicating, you're meant to thrive. You're not meant to survive. You're meant to thrive. That's how God created His greatest creation, us.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I've had the opportunity to, in my first year, in between waiting to go down to the school I ultimately graduated from, I was living in Long Island in New York, and my childhood dog was dying. So my father brought him out. His name was Coco, and I took a walk with him. I'm crying, I'm hugging him, I'm tearing up. And I said, you know what? He's got a spine. I got a spine. So I adjusted him. I heard the loudest noise. I thought I broke his neck. And he lived like a puppy for another 8 months.
Wow.
And then there was there's a vet right up the street. At the time, it was, I had a patient that was working in that vet, and there was a cat that was going to be put down, like just a few months old. And the woman said, you know what, let me just bring her over to Dr. Art, because he takes care of animals. So this cat was paralyzed, its rear legs, and they brought it in, put it on the table. I adjusted the cat jumped up off the table and ran down the hall. Then I had an opportunity through a friend of mine. Actually, it was a friend of my parents who helped design my very first office, lives in a mansion on Staten Island, a very famous one, and he has stables at his homestead. And there was a horse that was in the stables, and the horse was lame. So I had the opportunity to take care of a horse. His name was Willie, and he got well. And here I am, I'm up on this ladder, and I'm trying to move bones around. But the principle exists no matter whose spine it is.
Wow, I didn't even know you can adjust animals and just, it's like you're also a veterinarian,
and you know what?
Too.
They don't ask, do you take my insurance?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, they get a lot of people with pet insurance, and I didn't even know that was a thing until recently. But yeah, you were saying something about earlier about how back injuries are, like, I don't know, very expensive, or one of the things that people spend the most money on. Low
back pain and the missing of work due to the pain of low back pain is the greatest expenditure to our healthcare system there is. It's billions and billions of dollars. And, you know, what we do is very often rely on a classification of drugs called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which in the long run promote more pain. And in my own particular case, where I was on a track to become a fighter pilot, I'm the first male in my family not to go in the United States Marine Corps. I was taking 10 aspirin a day. Now, for every aspirin you take, your digestive system, more specifically your stomach, bleeds 1 teaspoon of blood. So here I am, I'm 16, I'm taking 10 aspirin every day. I'm not getting well. My track coach was upset because I missed the whole season. And in the long run, it created more pain and more inflammation. And now we have an opioid crisis because of our reliance on opiates. And chiropractic is very instrumental in helping that because it's a non-drug intervention. And when you focus on outside entities to correct an inside problem, when you take responsibility for your health, the word doctor means teacher. And I want to teach you how to need me as little as possible. Now, as a chiropractor, in understanding that you have things going on in your body that you don't know, like I knew intuitively, not just intuitively, just by examining, looking at you, where your major problem was. And I told you where it was, and you were amazed that I was able to pick it out. But after 30-something years, you would think that a doctor who's trained to look at people would know how to do that. And thank God I do. It's not bragging to say I'm really good and blessed to do what I do.
Yeah.
It's a responsibility, actually, that I now do not take for granted as much as I once did.
Wow. Yeah, that's really awesome. I guess when you build so much experience, you're able to like look at things quickly just like that and just know what the problem is and know
and knowing that, I have to say I do some showmanship, like when I tested your muscle and it went weak. I do that to show people and gain the confidence that they need to allow the interaction between us to be a positive one. So you believe in what I do. And if you believe in what I do, it's going to be a lot easier to get it done. If you don't believe in what's being done, it's going to be. And a lot of the success stories that chiropractors have been having for decades were attributed to the placebo effect. Well, people just believe. Well, you know what? People thought they were going to get well from taking OxyContin, and you have many people that are in the ground because of it.
Yeah,
I almost lost my best friend in the world, who was my roommate in chiropractic school, because that classification of medications caused him to get addicted to it and had some devastating consequences. And it could have been me.
Wow. Yeah. So tell us about the daily life that you have as a chiropractor. Like, what do you Monday through Friday? Like, what do you see? What do you do? Like, when you deal with patients.
Well,
I bet you have a lot of paperwork.
Well, there is a lot of paperwork involved. And again, that could become very political, and I want to try not to bring politics into it.
Yeah.
But I just look at every patient as somebody that doesn't want to be in pain. Or they just want to feel better. Sure. You said earlier I'm trained by Tony Robbins. That is true. And Tony Robbins himself says people do things for one of two reasons: to avoid pain or gain pleasure. Very simple. So whether it's it is one of those two reasons that everybody comes to me. I now, after many, many years, believe I do it a little bit better in that I do a much better job of putting myself in that person's shoes, and I'm thinking, what is it that person wants to get out of this experience? Do they just want to use it as an aspirin and feel better? I do my best to help them understand that when they take responsibility for their health and they utilize me as an adjunct to that, with experience and I like to think some talent and some genetic ability.
Sure.
And they embrace it, their life is going to be improved. So I take a moment with every single patient I get the privilege of putting my hands on, especially when it's the case of a child.
Yeah.
Because I had the opportunity of delivering my only biological son, and I gave him his first chiropractic adjustment right after his older brother and sister helped in that delivery. It was done in a birthing center. And he didn't see his first medical doctor until the age of 16 when he broke his wrist playing basketball. And I'll add, he couldn't beat me till he was like 22. Because I could still break.
That's funny.
But that talent has enabled me, as you said, we were discussing earlier, to even have the privilege of helping and taking care of Muhammad Ali. And having Muhammad look me in the eye after his Parkinsonian tremors stopped for 3 days from one adjustment and telling me that I had better hands than he ever had in his whole life.
The BBC reports a U.S. workers' online study said that nearly 70% agree public speaking skills are critical for success at work. Maybe you are a student looking to become a prime candidate for that internship, or might I say full-time position, or maybe you've already been in the job market for some time now and you just want to stand out amongst your coworkers looking to get that raise you feel like you've been passed up for too long now. Go to speakyourlife.com/private-lessons. That's speakyourlife.com/private-lessons. Again, that's speakyourlife.com/private-lessons to become a better communicator tomorrow by signing up today. Man, I don't know. Like that's a great compliment. I have to say that's a great compliment. If you got somebody like Muhammad Ali saying that you have great hands, as you know, he was famous for his. And so what was that like to be able to have him as your patient?
Well, first of all, he was a jokester. Even though you could barely hear him because his Parkinson's disease was quite advanced at that time.
Ali was really old whenever you adjusted him.
Yeah, it was 1999. It was in Cancun, Mexico.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I got that opportunity because I was involved with an organization called the Institute of Global Prosperity, of which the gentleman that ran that organization, I helped him with a severe problem with headaches. And he had, I saw him wincing and I said, "Dave, what's wrong?" He goes, "Oh, I've got a headache." I said, "I'm a chiropractor. I'll get rid of it for you." He said, "No, you don't understand. I've been to 13 specialists." I said, "Just humor me." So I did what I do, and he shakes his head. He goes, "What'd you do? You got rid of my headache." I said, "That's the idea, isn't it?" Then, being a capitalist, he says, "You can make a lot of money down here." So I thought about it, and I said, "You know what? I'll agree. I'll set up a table. I'll ask for donations under one condition. All of the money that's raised that we give to Sister Susie." Sister Susie was a woman from El Paso, Texas, that had a charity called Hands of Love and Hope, which her daughter still runs to this day, and I'm still friendly with. And these children were nicknamed Children of the Dumps, and it's because right over the border in Juarez, Mexico, parents that couldn't afford or didn't want their children literally left their kids in a garbage dump. So in a day and a half of asking for donations and getting the privilege of putting my hands on many people and getting my many miracles there of saying, "Hey, how did you do that? I used to have this and I used to have that." It was very nice, but I walked up on that stage with over $6,000 in cash and handed it to Sister Susie.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. And so
and her Sister Silsie's daughter, Irma Tovar, is her name. She, to this day, is running that charity, Hands of Love and Hope, and they're in El Paso, Texas.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's a lot of like people with like work stress, and how do you think that plays a part into like you seeing patients and stuff like that?
Well, all I know is I would much rather have the stress that we have today than the stress of being a somebody that was around in the days that the country was just expanding, and our stresses were, am I going to eat tomorrow? I don't have to question whether I'm going to eat tomorrow. There's a store right around the corner. Mm-hmm. We have the stresses of today, all luxury stresses. And in some countries around the world, even our own hemisphere, Haiti, where I've had the opportunity to help send money down there to people that make less than 35 cents a day. Mm-hmm. I'd much rather have the stresses I have today of whether or not I'm going to make the 4 train or not than the stresses. Is my next meal actually going to come? Or how am I going to get it? Do I have to beg for it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when people say, "Well, I don't have time," you make time for the things that are important. And as I told you earlier, I don't go more than a week without going to a chiropractor. I don't wait until my back hurts. I don't wait until I have a headache.
Yeah.
That's trying to play catch up. I don't want to play catch up. I want to thrive. And when I do my job correctly, I help people transition from one of being mechanistic to just not wanting to have pain to being one of embracing life and wanting to see what they could do to help another human being and raise them up. I believe in hand-ups, not handouts.
Yeah. That's important because whenever you're helping people that maybe are less fortunate than you, you should never look down on them. You should, because you never know what your situation, your life may bring.
Exactly.
So yeah, there's a lot of people that do, good work in other countries, third world countries, and sometimes they make a mistake by looking down on those people.
Well, I'm guilty of that. I believe everybody's guilty of that. And to help keep me grounded, I mentioned BJ Palmer, who's the developer of chiropractic. On a daily basis, I endeavored. He was an unbelievable man. I tried to read something by him every single day and quote him, and I quote people like Tony Robbins all the time. And BJ has a saying, you never know what something you think, say, or do, how it's going to affect the lives of millions tomorrow. When you think about that, it's very profound.
Yeah, that's so true.
And something I say today that it could really hurt you, and I don't want to hurt anybody. I want to hurt somebody that hurt my family. That's somebody I would want to hurt. But other than that, I do my best today, and I fail at it every day, to put myself in somebody else's shoes. And what did I do to contribute to the failure of our communication? Or what can I do to improve it?
Yeah.
More importantly.
Yeah, that's important.
And that's what chiropractic is all about, communication.
Yeah, as with any interaction with two people coming together. And so
every relationship requires communication, otherwise it's going to have challenges. And that's especially true inside the body, between the brain cell and the body cell. And that's something that I'm very proud to say. The philosophical premise of being a principled chiropractor that embraces the philosophy of vitalism over mechanism. I don't want to be a shot. I don't want to be a vaccine and help somebody not hurt. I want to enable you to be everything you could be to steal a phrase from the Army, and chiropractic can do it. As I said earlier, and I'll say it over and over, I believe it's the most noble profession on the planet.
Yeah, I can feel the passion that you have through just the way you speak and all the stories that you have.
It gave me my family.
Yeah.
It gave me my only biological son, and it gave me two beautiful stepchildren. That's
priceless. That is priceless.
And it's enabled me to have experiences and meet people that are so much smarter than I am. And, I wake up every day on the right side of the grass, and I just thank God for allowing me to do that. And I'm ahead of the game when I do that, especially with some of the choices I've made in my life.
What would you say would be like the percentage, if you were to give an average about like the percentage of people who come in there and like not related to injuries, like non-injury related, like if it's to do with stress, what would you say that percentage is of all the patients that you interact with?
You mean how many people come in just because they want to be better? And prevention? It's extremely small percentage. However, most people come in with a problem, and some of them will come in and make the conversion if I'm doing my job correctly, and if they allow themselves to move into the philosophical, live the idea of vitalism, and understand that I can be so much more than I am today, and I don't have to just take a Doan's pill or put on a brace or rely on something outside of me to get well. If it's to be, it's up to me.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
Wow.
And I am not shy about sharing the multitude of mistakes that I've made and things that I've done wrong to hurt other people. The best thing I could do is not repeat those mistakes, especially when I know I'm doing them.
Yeah. Do you feel like being in this profession helps you to, I don't know, maybe pay it forward, or just like give back to people, maybe the people who've given you second chances in life, the people who've done good things to you.
And third and fourth and fifth and 10th. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Many people would describe me as being shy. Mm-hmm. Sometimes my mouth gets me in trouble. And so I meet people very easily, and I like to think I'm pretty easy to talk to. I mean, you and I met.
Yeah, on the plane.
Right.
We're just chatting.
So, I meet many different types of people, and I learn from many different types of people, including really young children. Mm-hmm. There's this saying, out of the mouth of babes, man.
Yeah.
They don't have a filter like we do.
Yeah, they're straight honest.
Exactly.
No sugarcoating.
Exactly. And anytime I get to improve the quality of life of another human being, I'm doing the work that God wants me to do. One of the reasons God put me on earth and gave me the gift that he gave me is to share it with other people. And if I don't do that, I'm not meeting my responsibility. And I take that very seriously. Especially in light of the fact that I know I've hurt my own family, I've hurt myself. I could have, I could very easily not be on this earth any longer. But God left me here for a reason, and I want to embrace that.
If you would tell us a little bit about, you were talking about your struggle with addiction and how, and tell us about that and how it led you to a big valley in your life, and how you've risen above that and allowed that to be a motivator for you in your practice as a chiropractor.
Well, first of all, fully 20% of the population have the genetic predisposition to some form of addiction or behavior or something like that. So most people, if you look around, if you're in a room with 20 people, 4 of them are going to be addicted or potentially addicted to something. And it may not be alcohol or drugs like it is. It could be gambling. It could be sex. It could be work. Mm-hmm. It could be just being an idiot. I don't know. So knowing that I have that genetic predisposition and knowing that I've been addicted, active addiction, knowing that it caused me to lose a very good marriage, a very good woman, and it caused me a stroke. Mm-hmm. I had a number of years clean. I didn't heed the I did not continue to embrace the one day at a time principle that the 12 steps of recovery embraces, and it caused me to relapse. And before I know it, I was back to my choices of drugs and behaviors, because it wasn't just drugs. Yeah, it was. Yeah. I also was a philanderer. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until I basically had a phone intervention with my best friend in the world and my brother that wanted me to get a drug test because they didn't believe me, and of course I was lying. I was high at the time when they. When they did that phone intervention, and my best friend said they wanted me to do a drug test. And I know how to beat a drug test. My office used to be a federal drug testing facility. So I knew exactly what I was going to do to beat that drug test. Yeah. So the last thing my best friend in the world said to me was, Art, if you're dirty, we're done. I don't want anything to do with you. And I said, okay. And then when I got off the phone, and I couldn't wait to get off the phone because I wanted to get high again. Mm-hmm. I thought about it. It had enough impact on me that I started crying. I said, they are trying to save my life, and I'm jumping out of a plane without a parachute. Mm-hmm. So I tried to call him back. He did not answer the phone. And the next morning, I got my brother on the phone, and 2 days later, I was in a detox. And I was in detox for 5 days, and I was in rehab for a few weeks, and I got kicked out of that rehab, which ultimately was one of the best things that happened to me, because at that time, I made the decision to also give up swearing, and I made the decision to eat much better, and it was very difficult to eat well in rehab because the food was horrible.
Wow, I can only imagine. And so,
and I've been clean ever since.
How many days now?
568.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I just came back from an anniversary of a friend of mine who celebrated 22 years. Somebody I grew up with, and we had the opportunity. We went trick or treating one year together in not too far away from here in a housing project, and I forget which one of us got it, but we got an apple with a razor blade in it. So he celebrated 22 years clean today, and I picked up my 18-month keychain today because I hadn't done that yet. So it was great. And then there was another gentleman that celebrated 29 years clean. So, and you know, I was the only white guy in the room, and I feel perfectly comfortable. As a matter of fact, I joke around with people. I tell people my name is Dr. Patterson. My patients call me Dr. Art. But if you can't remember either of those, remember White Boy from the Hood. And it's a joke, and they all remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, so how do you allow that past, your mistakes and your addiction, your past addiction, how do you allow that to drive you? How do you allow that to make you a better person as you have your daily practice and deal with customers or clients and stuff like that?
My experiences helped me to realize that, you know, we're all fallible. We all make mistakes, and we're going to continue to make mistakes. And as somebody that's a Christian, you know, it's about we look for redemption. And, you know, I love watching movies. I have a movie sitting on the floor over here called 7 Days in Utopia. It's about redemption, and it's done in a golf setting, which happens to be one of my favorite sports now. And it's about a guy that's a hothead like I am, and I really related to it. And he spends 7 days in a town called Utopia. And at the end of the 7 days, he gets a much better perspective on his life, goes back to his father, who was his caddy, when he has his tremendous meltdown, and he repairs the relationship. And, you know, life is about relationships. So I'd like to repair several relationships. And if not, I have to understand and realize that people have got, they're doing the best they can with the resources they have. There's a quote from Tony Robbins right there.
Yeah. Wow. So,
and I do a better job at doing that, I believe, today than I did last month or last year.
Yeah, we're always doing, like, at least we should always strive to improve, no matter how far we've come.
Exactly.
So, tell me about, so what would you say that if life is like a house, what would your house be standing on as far as, like, what you value, like, your, as far as, like, life philosophy? What is something that it could be anything, relationships, health? What is one thing that your house, so to speak, stands on?
My value in life is what can I do to improve the quality of life of somebody else? Because ultimately that's going to help me improve the quality of my life. When I could lift somebody else up, when I can help them have more hope than they had the day before by using my gifts and talents and experiences, then I'm fulfilling that purpose, and it makes me happier. You get more out of a gift that you give than a gift that you receive. That's really cool.
Yeah, I didn't believe that until
I remember
later on.
My ex-wife deciding she was going to get her fur coat, all right? And I'm measuring her in the middle of the night, and I was getting this custom made, all right? So she'd fall asleep, and I'm trying to measure her. And then when it came time to having it made and giving it to her on Christmas, I'm more excited about giving it than any gift I ever got. So joking, she's opening this big box up. She goes, "Oh, what if this is my fur?" And I said, "Oh my God, she knows." And then it was a complete joke. And then when she opened it up and saw it was her fur coat, I got a lot more out of giving that gift than she ever got out of getting it, I think.
Yeah, so that's you. So you give basically your whole profession, what seems like your purpose, if I'm understanding it right, is that you every day want to give the gift of health, to give the gift of vitality. Would I be correct?
Yes, and you know what? I took that for granted to the fact that, to the degree, not 5 blocks from me, I actually suffered a stroke. I'm sitting in a bar. I'm high on drugs. I'm drinking. And I felt a stroke coming upon me. I got up to leave, and I fell down. They wanted to call me an ambulance, and I said, no effing way. I left the bar. It was actually on Good Friday. I walked home. I forgot my cell phone in the bar.
Yeah.
I came home to sleep off the stroke. You don't sleep off a stroke.
Yeah.
Because I was too stupid and stubborn to go to the hospital. And then Sunday came. My family had not been able to get in touch with me. My sister shows up early on Sunday for Easter. I'm supposed to have dinner with her and my brother-in-law. And she said, where have you been? I said, I had a stroke. She said, how do you know you had a stroke? I said, because, Linda, I'm a neurologist. I know what a stroke is. So she calls my brother-in-law and says, meet me outside in 10 minutes. And I said, what are you doing? She goes, we're going to the hospital. I said, I'm not going to the hospital. She calmly pulls over and says, Arthur, either we're going to the hospital or I'm calling 911. Your choice. So I said, all right, we're going to the hospital. So we went to the hospital, went to the same hospital that my mother ultimately wound up dying in. And I held them responsible for that back then. So I go to triage, and the woman says, ask me my symptoms. And I flat out told her I had a stroke, and I told her where I thought it was. And then she got condescending and said, well, that's very complicated. So when there's a possibility of that type of problem, they're very quick to check things out. And the preferred diagnostic criteria for a stroke is a CAT scan. So they did this CAT scan, and I'm waiting in the little cubby that they put you in, and they came back not 5 minutes later, and I said, well, there's a positive diagnosis. And the guy wheels me away, and he says, I have bad news. I said, stroke right frontal lobe, right? And he looked at me with his mouth agape. And he said, how did you know? I said, well, I've had training. And luckily, my soon-to-be ex-wife was now running another chiropractic office in the state of New Jersey. And her boss came up and adjusted me every day from New Jersey in between his morning patients and his afternoon patients. And today, I'm stronger than I've ever been. Of course, it wasn't enough at the time to stop me from doing drugs. Yeah. And it ultimately cost me my marriage. But had it not been for him, I would not be as strong as I am today. So chiropractic helped me recover once again. Not only did it give me my profession, my family, but it gave me back my life. Now I'm embracing it much better than I've ever done. And to think I could have thrown my whole life away. I could have been dead.
Wow.
So I'm on the right side of the grass today.
Yeah, you are. You are. And so it's... I know it's been an honor to, get to know you and be able to sit down here and have this conversation. So yeah, I really appreciate, you're sharing your story, because there's a lot of people out there that have been through a lot, and they don't look at it as a way to, they don't look at their problems as a way to help them become better, as a way to help them have a second chance to turn their life around, to make it somewhere as positive and bring value to people like what you're doing. So I definitely want to commend you for that. So
thank you very much. And you know what? You're welcome to give out my email, Jeff. So anytime anybody has any questions or something that want to give feedback, anything, do you want me to give my email, Jess?
Yep. All right. So now we are at the segment of question of the day. So today's question of the day is just a little get to know you better. And today's question of the day is, if you could only pick one meal that you had to eat over and over every day, what would it be and why?
Kale.
Really? We just had some earlier.
Well, it's a, most of, I believe very strongly in mentors, and I have a mentor in my life that if he tells me to do it, or he tells me to jump, I say how high. His name is Dr. Dan Murphy. He's actually a instructor at Life Chiropractic College West. Yeah. One of my better friends in my life, and very busy man. And he reads like a book a week. I'm probably at the rate of a book every 2 weeks. And actually, I'm not sure if it would be kale. A meal, it definitely would be plant-based, as much as I'm a steak lover. It'd be a variety of vegetables with probably sauerkraut in it, because I love sauerkraut. And it's fermented, which is really good for you.
Only one.
Okay. A salad.
A salad. Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. You're you're a very, very healthy man, so I could see that.
Well, I'm blessed.
Yeah.
To have the health I have at the age I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I have almost given it all away on numerous occasions.
Mm-hmm.
I blame that on being Polish, though. However, I joke about that. That's the part of my inheritance that I most embrace.
Yeah, we all have to embrace where we come from. So, all right. So, guys, if you're interested and you are in the New York area and interested in experiencing an adjustment, if you've experienced any stress or having any injuries,
or you just want to thrive,
be sure to contact Dr. Art Patterson at drartisfree@gmail.com. Again, that's drartisfree@gmail.com.
And that's D-R-A-R-T. That's not doctor spelled out.
Yeah. All right. And if you'd like to reach him by phone, it would be 201-600-4452. Again, that's 201-600-4452. All right. So thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. Again, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Instagram at SpeakerLYFE, because life without your why is meaningless. And give us any feedback from today's episode. See you next time on the Speaker Life Podcast.